G'day friends and fans, welcome to Dave Talks Stuff Ukraine War Update for the 19th of February 2025. I'm your host, the author, David Applegate. We pop over to the map and of course we see, you'll know that Ukraine refused to end the war today. Well, it wouldn't have immediately entered, but it would have entered the final stage of negotiations. But of course, Zelensky, being the childish buffoon for childish and selfish regions, refused to enter into final negotiations. No, he doesn't want to end. He doesn't want to end the war. Now, there are several reasons for that. We'll get into later. But first, as we look around the map, Russia reminds us why, they are a force to be reckoned with, and why Europe knows, right, that this is a losing proposition, because don't forget, all of Ukraine can't defeat 20% of the Russian army. What if Russia decided 30%, right, or 40%, right? What if Ukraine decided that they attack something more sensitive? They are attacking Russia, right? It's their fault, right? They keep provoking Russia and saying, we're only defending ourselves. No, you're not defending yourself when you attack civilians, but that's what they are. They are cowards. And they are cowards because they're empowered by the large numbers of people who watch the videos supporting the war, and they themselves are repeating the phrase, sloppy Ukraine. Right? They keep talking about threats to democracy, right, and threats to Ukraine. The biggest threat to Ukraine right now is Zelensky, okay? Here is corrupt cabal, right? How many government ministers have to be fired for corruption? How many have gone to jail? None of them have gone to jail, by the way, right? Most of them have fled the country, okay? The cases are still pending in court, and people are starting to wonder if they'll ever go to court. But according to the prosecutor's office, they haven't finished the investigation. There's still millions unaccounted for, right? And they believe that the president is involved, right? And he's obstructing them, right? He and his lawyers are obstructing. So, of course, if this was Trump, you and me, you'd never hear the end of it, right? It'd be on every channel, every day, right? The fact that, the media gives Zelensky a pass because he's plenty of, as if that is an excuse for corruption and criminality, right? It's not, by the way. You can't go to the judge, judge, I was fighting a war, so it's okay, right? I'm a sick child, it's okay to steal. This is a problem, right? Liberals make excuses, but at the end of the day, now Russia has not prosecuted a lot of its offensives, right? They continue a grinding situation and often do not advance, right? They don't push until they are pretty certain, and even then they have had setbacks. Most of the time, however, they've pushed, won, and stayed. But these pushes are not big. Now, the push towards Lyman is stalled. Nobody's disputing that. The push in many areas is stalled. Nobody's disputing that. But Ukraine seems to think, we stopped the Russians for a few days. We won, everybody. They can go home, pack up your toys and go home. We won. Wait till they launch some more ONSCs. Yes, they have, reservations about using them, but Ukraine does not have reservations about blowing up Russian oil. So sooner or later, Russia has to decide, right? And they will. Okay? How much does Kontsakhovia really mean to them? No. I wouldn't destroy Kontsakhovia. No. I would say, I want the Donbass. Okay. Boom. Bye-bye. Oh, didn't like that? Boom. Bye-bye. Oh, you didn't like that? Boom. Bye-bye. Are we done yet? Boom. No. Boom. Are we done yet? Boom. No. Boom, boom, boom. 8 more sooner or later, right, as Zelensky loses his right, you want to end the war? Bang. Okay, you want to end the war? No, bang. You want to end the war? Okay, bang. You want to end the war? No, bang. Sooner or later, right, every day you just bang the city. That's what I would be doing. I'd hit them hard, go on the TV and say, Ukraine, do you want to finish this war? Shoot your government, right? And they'll say no. And you blow up another city. You do it again. And sooner or later, the TV's going to have Zelensky live, tied up and gagged. Somebody blows his head off and say, okay, we hear your terms acceptable, Mr. Putin. You know, sooner or later, it's acceptable, right? Unless, you know, what are you willing to pay, right, for victory, right? Zelensky wants victory, right? But what is the price of victory? Could have had it, but he wouldn't, right? He could have had it. Instead, right, he wasted thousands of lives because the media and everybody keeps telling us we're killing lots of Russians. And all the people in Europe are going, oh, right? But the real price of victory is all the liberals and feminists and everybody else with their Ukrainian pins to go to Ukraine. Pay it. Go on, liberals. You go to Ukraine, right? You would stop the Russian advance. I'm telling you, you would. Right? Right? If Russia was facing a swell of numbers in Ukraine, they would probably stop the advance. Right? You wouldn't kick them out. Right? But they would hesitate. Right? They would think twice before continuing the war. And it's possible, particularly with Hungary and other countries, right, to say, yeah, okay, we'll begin the process with the Americans, right, on the gas pipelines and stuff like that, you know, but no, right? This is all about gutless Ukraine, right? Gutless Ukraine, right, wanting to cut off Russian gas and oil and replace it with their own, right, of which they have very little, but that is it, right? If you cannot accept that, you are beyond salvation because you are not thinking with your frontal cortex. You are using that little tiny thing called emotions, right? That little tiny insignificant thing called emotions. And go, yeah, empathy for the Ukrainian people, you know. No, you don't, right? You don't. You have gutless syndrome, okay? Gutless wonder syndrome. And there's a lot of them, right? People who will not put their beliefs on the table and go, well, the time has come. I support Ukraine, therefore I must be in Ukraine, right? That you know, why aren't you in Ukraine? If you support Ukraine, why aren't you in Ukraine? And people are going to go, hey, you support Russia, why aren't you in Russia? Because I don't support Russia either. You insignificant insects. So, yes, the left are insignificant insects as far as I'm concerned, right? Russia has not made significant advances, but that doesn't mean they're not going to, okay? Right? Doesn't mean they can't, right? Particularly with the weather, right? We've seen before when you call, remember when they were down here, right? held up, right? And again, explosions in Mariupol, right? They're not fighting the Russians. The Ukrainians are punishing people, right? Attacking civilian targets, right? Because that's Zelensky's solution. I make people feel pain. Well, they're going to make you feel pain, Zelensky, right? It really will come down to, right? Zelensky will soon feel pain like none other, right? Russia has invented sore losing. I keep warning you, right? You do not want to upset the Putin. The Putin is sneaky, okay? He's a clever man, okay? He runs rings around US presidents on multiple occasions, right? He survived the Clintons, right? He survived the Obamas, and he survived Biden. Well, I'm sorry, a snail can run circles around Biden, Biden was literally a corpse. But remember, a year ago, they said Zelensky's demands were unreasonable, ridiculous, redonkulous, right? They set aside the behaviour, right, that took place in the meeting, right? They're talking about the Turkey here, right? The Turkish meeting, right? Zelensky was a buffoon, right? It was an absolute buffoon walking in, demanding to say, I demand Putin withdraw all forces. I want $1 billion, $1 trillion, right? Putin to withdraw and $1 trillion. Even asked for Putin's head, right? Forget all that, right? Well, it makes perfect sense that Zelensky will not trust Russia. He asked for security guarantees, right? Asked America to risk World War III, right, to end the war, right? Now, despite everybody saying it was a disaster, eventually, yes, Trump offered the security guarantees. Remember, for weeks now, they've drawn out the process for Europe to approve the US plan, right, for peace guarantees. They twinked and tweaked and twinked again, right, so they can have their trigger for war, right, just like they did in Vietnam, right? The French made sure there was a trigger for war in Vietnam, and what did they do? And lo and behold, it happened. What a surprise, everybody, that it turned out the Gulf of Tonkin was a fabricated incident to get the US in the war. Oh, no, really? Oh, well, I'm so surprised. Anyway, people who once respected Zelensky, right, absolutely to believe he is, could defend his country, right, that he absolutely has the right to not trust Putin, right, but and yes, you can be skeptical of Putin and all his motives, manipulations. You could call him out all day long and say, I don't trust you, I don't like you. Doesn't matter. At the end of the day, Trump points out there is no winning the war for Ukraine, right? It is futile. It is another dragged out crap fest, right? And that the diplomatic solution was on the table and Zelensky didn't take it. And again, he doesn't. Now, here they are, the left all saying, but security guarantees. Well, you got them, right? You got them. You had them, right? You had a package, security, rebuilding, but it's not enough for Zelensky. It's not enough. He's an absolutist. And they're talking about, you're a conservative moralist. No, realistic, right? Realism, right? The left just want their cake, right? They want their cake, right? Put it on display and say, look at Ukraine. And they say, I want to num everything, right? I want everything to be our way or no way, right? If we can't have Ukraine, we destroy it. Right? What did Zelensky expect? He wants other countries to get directly involved, right? But then again, only it's the Ukraine. No, it's not our fight. It doesn't concern us. That's exactly right. It's not your fight. You want to get involved, right? Remember when the left used to complain about American interventionism? Wasn't that long ago? Vietnam, Panama. Actually, if you forget, the first U.S. intervention in Panama was the Democrats. Same with the intervention in Cuba. It was Democrats. Right? That was intervention in Cuba, with the war in Spain. Sort of Republicans as well. But yeah, mostly Democrats, right? What was the intervention in Korea, right? Now, no offense to the Koreans, but the Democrats, right, who started that war, right? That's when they started. That was the last. They had their anti-war, right? Anti-interventionism, right? The anti-interventionists, right? I'm not saying you didn't deserve Korea, right? But I'm just saying, from the point of view, right? The Democrats start wars and then they turn against them, right? And here we are, the Democrats still wanting the US to go to war in Russia, right? And for what? because Putin don't like the gays. They want to remove Putin. Well, too bad, so sad. Because 70% of Russians are willing to press that button and annihilate the world. Right? They're sick of you. Right? They're sick and tired of your meddling in their affairs. Right? And then you complaining, right, about them. Right? All the time, right? The left. We're not the police. We're not the word police. And then they say, oh, Putin. We've got to go get Putin. We've got to go get You're hypocrites. Right? Right, remember the peace march, all peaceful marching. Get the US nukes out of Scotland. Get the US aircraft out of Scotland. They're making us a target for the Russians. Right? Meanwhile, the Russians were pissing themselves laughing. Right? You're a bunch of fucking hypocrites. Right? Wasn't long ago, right, in the 60s, it wasn't long ago, right, it was only 20 years prior, you were begging on your knees for the US to come save you. Right? You're all hypocrites. Right? You cry when you don't get your own way. Yet, that's the risk you take in a democracy, or a constitutional republic, or any system where the majority gets a say. Right? The Liberals do not want a democracy. They want their little clubs, their little cliques. That's why protesting is not a democracy. It's not democratic. It's bullying. And long overdue, you recognise that it's bullying, right? Now, Russia is surging ahead with new weapons. It was not long ago they rolled out the RPG-28. Now, I do actually believe it's been a few years, and they've released a number of new weapons since. But the RPG-29 was unveiled, revealed, put on display, right, is a high-tech precision instrument, right, thanks to Russian research. And by Russian research, I mean all those wonderful things you like, javelins you sent to Ukraine, right? What, you think Russia just destroys stuff? No, they capture on the battlefield, right? New precision optics, a new mount, right? It's no longer just a shoulder-launched, right? They have a new vehicle mount, right? It is a, what do you say? Laser-assisted targeting. Right, it's got laser optics, they could set it up as a pop-up, so now it's a fire. There you go. They actually showed it off, right, hitting targets. Now it's got a, let's see, what does it do? Airburst, right? It's a turret killer, right? It has a horizontal airburst and it has a horizontal impact, right? Just like the javelin. Where would Russian research be without all the stuff left behind in Afghanistan by Joe Biden? Yeah, it has a straight fire. It has a straight fire mode, right? You just point and click, right? And it can, yeah, it's a turret here, right? It's got options, right, for the straight shoulder launch. This is the progress of the, right? You can see it's a progressed, the progression of it to a large shoulder launch, right? There's the small little airburst. Actually, you actually get a variant of this, but I don't know if the Russians will do it. But they will have there's a tank variant, right? Little turret. They did this with the RPG-28, but I think they recently decommissioned, right? I don't know if they're going to fix its problems or going to totally decommission it. But they did have a little robot version of this with the mount to basically, yeah, just rock off. There it is, remote control fire. But yeah, but there was also BMP version, but it's basically fire off and boom. Yeah. So we have multiple variations being shown off. There's your small shoulder launch. There's your big, which is called vehicle mount, right? And there's also aircraft, right? There's also 105mm warhead, right? Thermobaric warhead, direct shot, 1,000 meters, right? For anti-troop sniping, right? Thermobaric weapons, bang. Oh, look, the Ukrainian offensive. Pop, what offensive? They offended me. And I barbecued them. Right, you got the anti-tank grenade launcher. Right. So, of course, you got the rifle head. Right. It's the rocket assist. So there you go. You've got a complete package, 1, 2, 3, right, of 105mm of lethality, right? In World War II, already back in World War II, 105mm anti-tank, right? Come full circle, right? Where the Russian 105mm anti-tank was dominating, right? Dominated the Russians with the 105mm, dominated the Germans, who were stuck with 75mm and 88s. Right, by the time they put out a bigger gun, they were losing the war. They couldn't keep up the factory productions. So yeah, this is what Ukraine is hoping for, right? That they could hit something like this and put the Russians out of business, right? Yeah, but here's the thing, right? You really think Russia's just going to say, oh no, we just lost the factory, we're going to do nothing about it? Right? Remember, Russia's a big country, right? They're not landlocked, they're not without allies, they're not without resources, right? Say, this ain't 1944 or 1945, right? The Russians are ahead in technology compared to Ukraine. Ukraine is dependent on the West. Ukraine, of course, has been propped up by the West. As you can see, it has enough explosive firepower to take out a helicopter, right? Tank. Now, they put on glossy displays. But the Saudis didn't believe the Russians. The Saudis made the Russians fire this on multiple occasions. Every variant, right? Whether it's the vehicle-mounted, the shoulder-mounted, or the rifle grenade. So the Russians did. They showed up not just in Russia, but they showed up in Riyadh. Right, took the Saudis' defense minister for a ride. Right, showed them the vehicles, asked them to pick targets. They even did concrete bunker busts, door breakdowns. Right. Yeah, you actually fire a rifle grenade, take out the explosive, fire a rifle grenade at the door and just break it open, right? It's, you'd be clever, you don't have to always be high explosive, right? But you have a high explosive anti-tank, right? In the big tank buster, then you've got the anti-troop thermobaric, right? So you've got options, and you've got the small rifle grenade, right, which could be anything from doorbuster to basically turning a room into chunky salsa, everybody. But the pop-up, yeah, this is what's going to be screwball, right? Trying to see that at a kilometre with your naked eyes. Good luck, right? But it is a combat necessity, right? Rocket launched, whether it's the Javelin or the RPG, it is or even the rifle grenade, right? It's a combat must, right? It is destroying, and as you can see, it destroys American armor quite efficiently, right? There's a standard combat vehicle in Ukraine. Boom, bye. 15 millimeter, 20 millimeter armor, your light vehicles, poof, they're gone, right? Precision, optics, something that Russia has struggled with in the past, right? Not anymore. They have upgraded their Air Force too. We'll get to that. But you imagine trying to spot that army man at a mile, right? A kilometre. Some at 100 feet, No. Rain, hail or shine, Ukraine is toast. Now, there are other key developments going on, but they are all Russia's carried out. As I said the other day, 200 drone strikes. Man, that's rookie numbers. But here we go, 448. Now we're talking, right? They shelled, forcing evacuations along the front line. That's what they do. They announce they're coming, right? They shell empty fields. Why? Because the Ukrainians know they're going to walk those up, right? The next day it's going to be closer and closer to town, right? If the town isn't evacuated in 3 days, it's hit, right? They hit something. The Russians are being way kinder than you actually realise, right? They are not advancing fast. They're giving civilians time to leave, right? They give them notices that they're coming, right? They raced in the Hurlapole and told them they were coming, right? Zelensky's furious still that he got outwitted at Hurlapole, right? He thought Europol was safe, right? He thought the Russians would never cross, right? They'd never make it through their killing fields, right? They did. They laboriously set up anti-drones. They set up charge lines and tossed them over the fields and blew their way through the minefield. And the Ukrainians couldn't stop them. The Ukrainian artillery was too busy, hunkered down under fire, right, from drones. The drones would come round behind them. No matter what artillery you got, oh, there's a Russian drone behind us. Boom. Cleared out. What? Where? What? Right. Yeah. You do not want to be at the receiving end of a Lancet because you're just basically, right? So peace talks fell apart because the Ukrainian president said positions differ because negotiations were difficult. They were difficult. My job's so hard. Yeah. But then he later sucked up to Piers Morgan and said, No, just close to the fighting terms. I haven't given up. So some mothers do have them. And Zelensky's mother, definitely, right? Zelensky is definitely a son of a bitch, right? But Russia's top negotiator said it was difficult to be businesslike, but further negotiations will be held soon without saying when or why. But the Russians said to the Americans, we had a difficult day, but we're not giving up, right? We remain committed to our deal. Right, the Americans said, we clearly understand that this is not your fault. Right, we're not gonna up the as promised. They're not gonna up the because they already put the squeeze on Russia. Right, there's, by the way, down the end, there's the Chechen leader. Like he said, he'd get revenge. Right, I told you the best revenge would be to take Zelensky's war away from him. You didn't believe me, right? I'm telling you, this man's a genius, okay? This Chechen leader, you do not want to fuck with him. He is a genius, okay? So Ukraine has imposed sanctions on Belarus, and Lukashenko is going, oh no, no more Ukrainian whores. What will I do? Oh, there's plenty of other countries. Jeez, what has Ukraine got that Russia needs them, right? No. U.S. senators, including, yeah. So, Senator nobody heard of, and 3 other Democrats. Oh, you're supposed to be a Republican? went to Kiev. Yeah, so Rhino, Bozo, and Bozo went to Kiev. Yeah, that's the headline. All right, right there. Okay. Shitface said that she would hope to see a stronger effort and real work to put pressure on Putin. The things people say to pander to the paranoid public. Right? It's like the mafia. Oh, yes. Oh, well, Giuliani had made them cry. But you're not Giuliani. Right? This ain't the mafia. This is the problem, right? They all think they're the heroes in their lunchbox. They all think they're heroes until they have to pack up their lunchbox, cart off to somewhere, and actually do work. Yeah. But no breakthrough at all. But of course, but they've not really yielded any results, according to Al Jazeera. And this is the third round of peace talks. Right, we're not going to really play the article. We're going to move on. But Zelensky's future depends on how much evidence they find. Nikolai Azarov has admitted, right, that the investigations have not stopped. The Ukraine's National Anti-Corruption Bureau, the NABU, oh, they love their little acronyms, don't they? Someone's a Star Wars fan. Don't care. Moving on. This is evidence, right, of a corruption scheme that carried on under the guise of being under the direction of Nikolai Azov, who served from 2010 to 2014. Right, this is before Zelensky's election, but so. His former Prime Minister is 2014, right? He's before the coup, before all the troubles, right? Like a lot of former Ukrainians, right? Anybody before I think it's anybody before Zelensky's election has fled the country, right? A lot of former politicians are either in Spain or Russia right now. A lot of former Ukrainians, right, have made it clear that Zelensky just hasn't gone after opposition. He's killed a lot of people, and nobody wants to point that out. Nobody wants to add up the names, right? Gonzo Lira, right? He's had that, and others, right? Journalists in particular, right? The Specialized Anti-Prosecutor's Office is being protected by the Americans. Did he bring it up in this interview? One of the interviews, he mentions that Ukrainians, right? That as soon as he's finished with the investigation, right? When they finish their investigation, they don't report to Zelensky. They go to the FBI in Washington and tell them what they found. Right? There's a major corruption scheme involving the energy sector. It was called Operation Midas, and according to investigators, they laundered about $100 million, right? Zelensky's close friend, Timu Medic, was identified as a coordinator in the scheme. He left the country several hours before the searches began. Oh no, I wonder how that happened. How did he know he was being investigated? Someone leaked the story to him. And who was the one who was hovering around and trying to close down the NABU, right, and having them report to his office? It starts with Z, ends in ski, and is low IQ, right? The only reason why they get away with this is because the liberal establishment just let them, right? These are not sophisticated schemes. They just put everything into... All they do is simply put zeros on the end of bills and have them pay to their accounts, right? This is not rocket science, right? They're not sophisticated criminals, right? But Zelensky says, oh, wait, talk about historical shit with Putin, and walked out, right? And then gave news conferences saying that, I'm not interested. It's not interesting for me. I don't have the time. I have no time for this shit. Right? You're the fucking president. It's your fucking job. Right? It ain't fucking rocket science. Right? Right? Putin called Ukraine an unofficial state? Abso-fucking-lutely. They didn't start as Ukraine, right? They're a modern state, put together, right, primarily in the breakup of the Russian Empire, right? They are nothing, right, without the Russians. All right, now they want to be something under the Europeans, right? Because, again, right, they think the sun shines out of their shiny ass, right? Now, Russia's interested in Syria still. Syria's still interested in talks with Russia, but they have to get around hurdles, right? Trump slams the UK over dirty deals in Diego Garcia and lease deal, right? That UK won't let US launch from there, right? You know, these allies who keep telling us about talking about unity, right? Now, not everybody, right? Even Russia, right? Russia's very skeptical about Trump's peace board because, Zelensky's corruption, right? You have to deal with both sides, right? You cannot just, you can't go after the Palestinians unless you go after Israel, right? And the problem is, right, when it comes to the Palestinian-Israeli conflict, both sides are bad each other, both sides committed war crimes. I don't give a fucking toss about Palestine, right? They're a bunch of fucking killers, right? They've killed. As far as I'm concerned, they are nothing to me, right? I don't care about them, right? But when it comes to, if you want to call out Israel, you have to call out Palestine, right? If all these people who support Palestine, all right, there's the door. Go, right? Now, Ukraine created an emergency in the minds of Europeans, but Germany's sobered up and realised that if they have nuclear weapons, what's the point, right? If it comes down to nuclear war, it's too late. You're fucked, right? It's better to have the American defense shield. They want it though. They don't see, because there's so much money up for grabs. Ukraine is going, look at us. You know, we got this amazing air defense technology, and right, can't even protect a warm cup of piss, right? So no, right? But again, it's a false narrative that Ukraine, right? Hungary's called them out that Ukraine is defending Europe. No, it's not. It's not defending a cup of warm piss, okay? It can't even defend itself, right? In a year, right? Russia has... Okay, let's go back to the map, right? You can actually do this, right? Ta-da! A time machine, right? Let's go back, right? To here, right? Let's look at the December, right? Where were the Russians a year ago? Right? Where were they a year ago? It's going to take a little bit of time to load, right? Yeah, they've advanced in some areas. They've advanced far, right? Look at that, all that, right? Sure, they were bogged down and still are in Kupiansk. I remember that, right? Seversk, right? All this Seversk, right? Look at that, all this territory, right? That they hadn't had. Look at that, right? Here's the biggest advance. All this in here, right? When Zelensky, Provosk, Myriad, all that. Right? Yeah, true. They were barely at Tarkovsk, right? So in a year, they haven't taken that much territory, but still, 1% of Ukraine could, right? All that territory, all those lives, right? Zelensky could have prevented the death of up to 1 million people, right? Lost, right? Now, this was a sticking point at the time, but with the security guarantees, right? Would have been a third, right? Would have been a buffer zone, demilitarized zone, right through, right? Big buffer zone, and nothing, right? Nothing, right? Nothing off his, no skin off his nose, right? Right? He's got his 4.6 million, right? Allegedly, right? He's got his properties, right? Well, allegedly, some officers and some acolytes of Zelensky have had accidents, and by accidents I mean their car collided with a drone. Right, some of Zelensky's properties have had accidents, and by accidents I mean they got struck by lightning. Did I say lightning? I meant a Russian drone. So, yes, right, Zelensky's made this war personal, so Putin has made sure, right, they have the last laugh, right? They aren't going to laugh, and they're going to keep laughing, right? And they're going to, if they really hurt Russia, they'll hurt them back, right? Don't take my word for it, just history will tell you, right? Now, yes, I don't agree with everything the Russians said, but from a neutral narrative, from the standpoint of telling the truth, right? In my humble opinion, Russia invented sore losing, right? They make the Democrats sour, right? They get the lemon and ram it in, into your mouth and then punch it, right? Lemon crush, where they force a lemon into your mouth and then punch it. Right? That's a lemon crush, right? That's what they're doing, right? Only this time, only they don't. They're not doing it in friendship, or it ain't vodka laced, right? It's brass knuckles. So when I tell you, right, you can believe me. Take it to the bank. Touch wood that Putin is weighing up the Omsk offensive, right? Now, will he? I think no. But personally, right, the Duma has already voted twice to escalate this war. I don't think he wants a third vote. I think he'll have to come up with a compromise and have a bombing campaign, right, a missile strike campaign, probably average 200 a week, and then I'll say up it, right, and then up it, and then up it, right, and if Ukraine doesn't give up, they might say, well, we'll take the Americans' offer because it's June, we'll freeze the front, see what happens, right? Take the American initiative, because they know a war with America will suck, right? Even if they manage to grind America down to a halt, it will still suck, right? Vietnamese, they don't want to hear about the war anymore, right? They don't care, right? It means nothing to them anymore. They, for a lot of people, don't forget, lots of Vietnamese left because they regretted it, right? They hated it. They didn't like what they got, right? When you get your way, sometimes you don't like what you get, right? You can't vote your way out of communism, folks. But so, there we go. A whole year and a bit, right? And absolutely no one wants to accept responsibility for this war, right? And you can't make Putin do it, right? You're not the winner, right? Everybody with their Ukraine pin, they're losers, right? They can't accept losing, but they won't accept the price of winning. The price of winning in Ukraine is getting your fucking light ass into Ukraine, right? Right? Ukraine won't know what to do, right? You'll find out the hard way that Ukraine is not a nice place. Most of you, that's why they won't go, because they know Ukraine's not a nice place. They know that they'll most likely die, right? But because it's most liberals are performative, right? If there was a law that forced them into war, you watch, they'll race to Canada within hours and cry to the Canadian government that Trump's a meanie, he wants me to fight his war. No, it's your war. You just don't want to fight it. But it's coming for you, whether you like it or not, right? This is a scary thing, right? Ukraine has pretty much pissed off enough Russians that Russia is, and don't forget, traditionally Russia's been more your, don't forget, Europe ain't been your friend for a long time, right? French, the French only helped you with the English to basically stick it to them, but France thought you were going to lose, right? France thought you were still going to lose and they were going to take over, right? right? They didn't realize what a mess they made and was facing losing Louisiana anyway, right? No, French, right? They lost in Mexico. They got kicked out of Mexico, right? They couldn't come back home, right? So they hung around in Louisiana, and then they helped the Americans, and then realized that, we can have Louisiana could break off too, and so yeah. So don't think these countries are your friend. They've fucked with you, right? In ways it would take days to research it all and tell you, right? It's one of those things where I think, yeah, right. Truth, right? After World War II, you could have kept and should have kept Europe, right? Imagine all the problems that wouldn't have happened if you kept Europe, right? And right? You know the strategy, right? Going forward, we need an aircraft. We need an aircraft carrier yeah. Hey, Britain, liberation time. Vance has put the hard word on Starmer, right? Not just Vance, Rubio, right? Number of people, Scott Besson, all called out Starmer, right? The end thinks it's time for the end that national banks should be independent. Absolutely, they shouldn't be independent of the government. They're your property, man. Fucking kick out the bankers. Bankers are crooks, right? How do you spell crook? J. Start with B or J. So thank you for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe. Please support the show. You can support me on Ko-Fi, Patreon. Join my RPG Patreon for $1 a day. Oh, kidding. $1 a month. Bargain. And buy my books. Right? $3.99. Bargain. So, yeah. See you all in the next video, and bye for now.